Today, we are talking with my friend Allison Boyer, also known as Allison K. Hymas. She is an author specifically for children's and young adults books. If that's ever something you've been interested in, be sure to stick around. Apologies, as you can tell, I'm still trying to figure out the camera situation. I'm going to be starting with a new software here on the next few videos I record, so forgive that. Stick around for the conversation. It's a good one. Okay, so what's your name and what do you do?
My name's Allison Boyer. My pen name is Allison K. Hymas. That's going to become relevant because I am a writer. I write novels for middle school aged kids, and I'm working on a young adult novel at this time.
Cool. So this is I didn't know you were working on something young adult. Are you allowed to tell us anything about it?
I can give you the premise. I don't have, it's not with a publisher or agent right now, so it's just a work in progress that I am currently dealing with, but it's a young adult romantasy. It is a mashup between the fairy tales of Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast. So
Okay.
the elevator pitch, the summary, the one-line summary for this is Cinderella and the Beast meet, they become friends, they become more than friends, and they save the kingdom from a sneaky uh takeover that is
Okay.
plotted under the king and queen's noses.
That sounds fun.
It was way fun,
Nice.
way fun to write that.
And it sounds like it's maybe almost done then.
Just about. I'm revising a few chapters and I'm hoping to send it to some agents soon to see what they think.
Okay, so tell me how that process works then. I know it's not really a punch in, punch out, 9 to 5 kind of a thing. So, do you just have a fun idea and then start writing? And I mean, how does that whole work?
Okay, so it depends on the project. I was with an agent for a little while and I got that agent by writing a book that was, this is a fun idea. And I liked it. I wrote a query letter, which is it's kind of like a summary, like a punchy summary of the book, as well as some extra details about how long the book is, what genre the book is, and some extra details about me and why I should be taken seriously as a writer.
Okay.
And so I'll send those query letters out to agents. That's what I'm in the process of this right now with this YA book.
Okay.
But even with my middle grades, that's how I found an agent was by writing these query letters. And um, with that, it was my first book. It was my first and second books, actually. They're both part of the series. I had a cool idea and I ran with it. And then after that, with my eight, with an agent and a publisher, we started to talk about ideas that would be kind of in my brand. So my first two books were puzzle books, adventure books. So they wanted to see more of this kind of middle grade
Uh-huh.
code solving, mystery solving adventure. So I wrote the Explorer's Code, which was very much inspired by books like The Westing Game and um, like Agatha Christie mysteries, which is this set in this manor house or these codes and clues and ciphers the kids have to solve. And then my most recent book, Secrets of Stone and Sea, is my only published fantasy at this time.
Okay.
And it's also very much a puzzle book. It's about two boys who travel around Massachusetts and look for clues on how to put back the sea monster that they accidentally raised. So
Okay.
lots of fun with that one as well.
Yeah, those all sound fun. So is that three published so far and then one on the way? Four
Four
published so
published,
far. Okay.
four published, and I'm hesitant to say one on the way because I'm working
Okay.
on it. I'm looking for publication, but nothing is set in stone.
Yeah.
So we'll see
Okay.
what ends up happening. But the project that I'm currently working on, I am very excited about it. My writing group enjoys it. They think it's probably the best book I've written. So I'm
Great.
optimistic, maybe one day. But if nothing else, I had an absolute blast writing it. So we're going with that.
Well, good. It sounds like it's at least a little further along than this YouTube channel is. Well,
We'll see.
we'll
Yeah.
see.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm starting this channel because I think it hopefully fills a niche that's out there of people who are interested in whatever career it is.
Okay.
Hopefully this can be useful for them. But like I said, you're definitely further along here in that you've already got 4 books published, which is a little harder than pressing upload on the YouTube video. And I haven't even done that yet. So hopefully
Well,
we'll get there soon.
establishing you, I've tried to establish a YouTube channel. It's hard. Like,
Yeah.
power to you.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it goes well. So tell me how do you fit in writing into your normal schedule? Is this something that you kind of set a limit to yourself and say, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write, or is it whenever you can find time, or how do you work that?
All writers have different schedules and all writers do things differently. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and so I have kind of a fluctuation of when I can write and how much I can write. So there are times when the holiday season's a very hard time for me to write, and I know this, and I plan accordingly. So I tend to kind of I tend to write a lot more during the summer or during September when my daughter's 4 years old. She goes back to preschool, so I've got a little
Uh-huh.
bit of time. I have a writing group and we meet every 2 weeks, and so that keeps me writing at least a little bit every 2 weeks. Um, but what I found works for me, some writers will schedule out of time each day. Some writers will um, do it in fits and starts. I'm a bit more fits and starts.
Okay.
I found that for me, with my busy schedule with the kids, what works best for me is to set a writing goal for the week. So this coming week, I am planning to revise the first 3 chapters of the book
Okay.
I'm working on right now. And I can do that after the kids are in bed. I can do that during nap time. I will, during times when I can't get down to write, I will think about it. I'll think about the plans that I want to do. I'll read over the notes from my writing group. If because those are a lot easier for me to do a little bit more passively when I'm active with the kids, like I'm pushing a swing or something like that.
Yep.
And then so by the time I sit down and write, I have a plan. So I'm very free flowing when it comes to how I write. I find that having a goal set for the week, not for the day, but for the week, gives me a lot of flexibility to try to meet that goal and still keep the writing going. There are times of my life where I'm not writing as actively. And I'm going to say that I don't write actively because I feel like a writer's almost always writing passively. Like I'll
Hmm.
think through the characters, I'll think through the plot, or I'll be reading books, watching movies, taking in these ideas and letting them simmer on the back burner. Um, which helps because by the time I sit down to write, it really comes together. Um, but there are times when my husband will take the kids and give me some hours to write when I'm on deadline or if I'm trying to reach a goal quickly. When I was trying to finish this particular novel, I was writing a lot every day. But now that I'm in revision, it's more of okay, I'm going to revise the next couple chapters by the time my next writing group meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay.
That makes
That makes
sense.
sense. Okay,
Mhm.
so something you said that made me think. I hear a lot of people who have an idea for a book. And in fact, I've had ideas like, ooh, this would be a book that I would read, but it's not out there yet. So, what makes the difference between the people who just kind of have an idea and you or other authors who then actually go do it and can find a publisher and push it through the finish line?
You just do it. I don't know what to say. It it kind of comes down to motivation. I've had people ask me like, "Well, why bother writing this book if it's giving you grief?" Because books writing a book is a hard thing.
Yeah.
It's work. I love it. It's my favorite job, other than taking care of my kids, which, it's a little bit different. Career,
Yeah.
I don't get paid for that one.
Right.
But I love it. But it's a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of work. So I've had people ask like why keep with it? And it's just something in me. I love it so much. I want to see it through. I want to finish it. It's like running a marathon. It's hard. It takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of work, but by the time I finish, I feel this really big sense of achievement and yeah, I don't know, it works for me. But I don't know, it's just I think a lot of it's motivation. I think a lot of it's also finding ways to keep yourself accountable.
Okay.
When I was 15, I got challenged to write a novel for National Novel Writing Month by some guy in my class. And so that was the first novel I ever wrote. And it was absolute garbage. I'm not gonna let anybody see that one ever. It was so bad. But having this accountability, this friend like, "Oh, are you writing? Are you writing?" And then having to pace myself out over the course of a whole month to finish a 50,000 word novel taught me how to pace myself, taught me how to work and come back to it every single day. Um, because the truth is, if you want to write a book, you have a cool idea. If you just get back every day or every week with a certain goal and just keep at it, sooner or later you'll have a book. Sooner or later, that's going to come to be. So if you're motivated to write a book, it's just keep, just do it. Just sit
Yeah.
down, plot it out, outline, think about it, plan it, and then start chapter one, and then finish
So
chapter one and go to chapter two.
that's something I've been interested about too. Do you usually outline the whole storyline before you start, or do you just have an idea and kind of go with it?
I am learning that okay, so there are two types of writers, people say, and this is a false dichotomy right off the bat. There's pantsers and plotters. Plotters outline, they'll have a whole complete outline and they'll follow the outline. And there's some wiggle room. There's some wiggle room to change some things, but for the most part, the story is written before they even sit down to write chapter one. And then pantsers write the story and it's just like seat of their pants. Like they've got
Yeah,
no plan going in. They're just following where it takes them. The benefit of plotting is that you have a story that works. The pieces work together. It's cohesive. There's a narrative structure there. Pantsing, the benefit of that is that the story can grow more organically. You don't feel locked into ideas that you've had before just because they happen to work in some other way.
right.
I have learned that for me, I am a plotter when it comes to plot. I'll outline a plot, but I have to be a pantser when it comes to my character development.
Oh,
I have to
interesting.
sit down
Okay.
and write a story, not knowing who my characters are, and then learn about them over the course of the story, and then go back and fix that character in the earlier chapters. Because if I don't do that, the characters don't feel as real, they don't feel as motivated in the story. I have to follow their story. So basically, I guess the best way to describe it is I will come up with a list of things that are going to happen to these characters, and then I have to surprise myself watching what the characters do in response
Okay.
to those things.
That's really interesting. I mean, I've never written a book, but I mean, I never, sometimes when I'm reading, I can kind of tell like, oh yeah, I know where this is going. I'm kind of like when you're watching a chick flick, you know how it's going to end like at the
Right.
very beginning, but it's still fun to watch. Don't make fun of me. I
No,
enjoy watching chick flicks with my
I
wife,
watch
right?
Hallmark movies. I watch
Yeah,
Hallmark movies. Those are
exactly.
incredibly formulaic, but with it's part of the tropes of the story. So with a rom-com, the question is not are they going to get together at the end? Because
Uh-huh.
that's a given. The
Right.
question is how are they going to get together at the end?
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh,
So,
that's so this I'm thinking of all these questions here that I wasn't planning on asking at all just because it's so interesting to hear about, right? So now you have to tell me who are some of your favorite authors to read?
ooh.
I'll go
Um,
first.
go for it.
One of my favorite novelists is Leanne Moriarty. Um, it, and I don't know if she's a pantser or if she's a plotter or whatever, but it seems like her character development is always really on. I mean, she never repeats characters, but by the end of the novel, you always know these characters really well. And I mean, they always surprise me too. So I don't know. She's one of my favorites.
Okay. Um, Lee Fanger is one of my favorites. He wrote Peace Like a River. I like his stuff because his characters are always so unique and alive and interesting. I don't know if he's a pantser or a plotter. I also like him because I almost weep tears every time I read his books because my writing will never be as good as his.
Oh yeah,
He is spectacular at using the right image, the right word, at any given time. It's fresh, it's interesting, none of it's cliche, but he's accessible. He's not one of those writers who uses huge words to impress or anything like that. It's just, he just has a handle on language and a handle on story and character and theme. It's just masterfully done. Everything he writes is a masterwork. So
Awesome.
it's one of my favorites. I also like Patricia C. Reed, the Enchanted Forest Chronicles, and I've got mad love for Terry Pratchett's for Sir Terry Pratchett. Forgive me. For his Discworld books, because they're that's another one I'm like we almost weeping as I'm reading because I'll never be that good, but it's such a
So
delight to read.
when you say it's that good or it's a delight to read, I remember my high school English teacher just being all about the poetry and the symbolism. Is that what you mean? Or do you mean it's a really good story that pulls you in?
Yes.
Okay,
Um,
great.
so like with Terry Pratchett, he's brilliant at plotting. He's brilliant at everything. So his books, they're these fantasy novels set in this world that is extensive and detailed and rich with lore and characters and different areas with their own cultures. And he uses satire to talk about issues that we face.
Hmm.
And he does it so well. The story is engaging, the characters are interesting. Um, you feel like a better person, you feel smarter when you read his books. And he
Hmm.
also uses puns all over the place. I went to
Yes.
a writing conference. I went to a writing conference and we were talking, there's a whole panel discussion about Sir Terry Pratchett's books. And somebody got up there and somebody up there was talking about how when they were reading his book Monstrous Regiment, there's this scene that made this panelist so mad. And the scene was this that everybody's out like this imagine this army in a forest and the commander says we're going to use a strategy. Now we're going to use the this strategy that Tacticus did in this field of daisies where he covered his army or covered themselves with the flowers to blend in.
Huh.
And somebody says, "Well, we don't have any flowers. We have pine trees." And the commanding officer says, "Okay, men, spruce up."
Ah.
And so like it's full of things like that where it's just playful and smart. And so if you catch the references to the smart things and you feel really good and it's fun and the puns and the wordplay are a delight and the images of there's one book where a cat goes off and you hear a rooster break off mid-crow. Like the
Uh-huh.
you know what that cat did. So there's this
Uh-huh.
little it's like that. It's just a delight. And with Leif Anger's books, there's this poetry in the language that's not flowery, it's not a super elevated, it's just the right words for the right image, and it's just like music. It's like music.
Yeah, I like that. So here's something. I'm a data scientist. That's my job. So we are all over at all of the AI stuff. We're trying to take advantage of it as much as we can. When you interact with or talk about ChatGPT or other generative AI, is this something that makes you nervous as an author? Is this a tool that you use? How does that go? I've read lots of articles, but I'm interested in hearing what an actual author thinks about it all.
I do not use it.
Okay.
I've seen it. I think there's a place for AI. I think there's a good use for it. I don't think it's in writing novels. Um, I think so. There's a group of writers that I'm kind of in touch with, and they call AI the plagiarism machine.
Okay.
Because a lot of so AI is getting trained on authors' works, and the authors are not getting paid for this. They might not even know that this is happening. So it's possible, and this is becoming an actual problem for somebody to write a book using AI in the style of another author and pass it off as that author's work,
Right.
but the all the proceeds from that go to the person who used AI to write it. And there are no laws in place for this because it's hard to really say like, okay, well, you the author are getting credit for this book because it is your style, but you're not getting any of the money for it because you didn't write it. So there's some issues with that. I think AI is a good useful tool, but and I think it can be helpful in generating ideas for writing. But I think it needs to be a tool, like a
Right.
brainstorming tool. I think that it's not fair to writers to use it for writers to use it to generate text. That feels wrong to me. And I've had writer friends who have had issues with AI being used to plagiarize their stuff.
Okay.
So this is a real thing. And
Yeah. It's interesting to think about from the other side too. When I use AI, it's to help me write code faster.
mhm,
And it's not being creative per se. It's
mhm,
taking the documentation of whatever language we're using and it's spitting it out in whatever context I need it in. The few times that I've kind of dinked around with it to come up with something creative, it's still garbage. I
it is.
I mean, if you get annoyed with these novels that are pretty much the same story over and over again, uh, generated work of fiction, however long it is like
Mhm,
that and even worse, because it's not a person. It can't be creative. It can only regurgitate versions of what it's read before. And I
mhm,
agree with you. It can be a very useful tool. And I've even heard of some authors who say, "Here's this passage that I just wrote. Pretend you're a 10th grader and give me your feedback." And again,
mhm.
it's not a real person, but like you were saying, it's helpful for brainstorming and maybe looking at it from a different angle or whatever.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think that if it's being used to create, uh, it's going to end up either being garbage or you're going to be plagiarizing another writer. So it's not a place to use to create, to generate some kind of creative work. It's useful, like you said, for generating ideas, getting feedback on a passage. Um, but I would say if you're looking for feedback on a passage, the best feedback you can get is from other writers because these are people who know the business and can know, like, here's a trope that's tired and old, but at the same time, the way you're using it, it works. So they can
Interesting.
get some nuances that ChatGPT is probably not going to get.
Yeah. So your first two novels were, you said middle school aged, right?
All four that are out right now are
All
all for
four.
middle
Great.
schoolers. Yeah.
Is Are they all four in the same series?
No.
No. Okay, great.
So my first two are Under Locker and Key and Arts and Thefts, and that's about a boy who's a thief for hire at his middle school and ends up having to team up with his nemesis, who's a girl detective that I describe as a cross between Batman and Javert. So
Okay.
very intense and very justice oriented, and he's a thief. So that's two, and those are part of a series.
Okay.
And then my next book's a standalone, The Explorer's Code, about three kids who go to a mansion in Virginia and come across these clues that help them solve this old mystery in the house. And then the last one, the fourth book, is about two other kids, twin boys who accidentally raise an ancient sea monster while at summer vacation with at their grandma's house in Massachusetts, and now they have to put it back.
So when you're working on those books, do you give them to middle schoolers to read and get feedback, or do you mostly stick with your writing group?
I wish I could. I just I don't have that kind of group so much for middle school kids. So I'm friends with some teenagers due to my calling at church, my job at
Okay.
church. So I've got some connections with some teenagers through that. So YA is going to be a little different, but for middle school, I wish. No, what I do for middle schools, I will watch middle schoolers. For a while, I was a substitute teacher, and I wasn't able to pass my books on to the middle school kids for them to read, but I'd watch them. I'd watch the kind of things that they were reading. I'd listen to how they spoke. I listened to how they interacted with each other. I'll read middle school books all the time.
Okay.
So whatever, and so that helps me get the voice in my head. And this is a trick that I will do, and it works for me, is I will make playlists on Spotify of the music that I listened to when I was in middle school.
Oh, nice.
That brings me back.
Yep.
So I can remember like how it felt to be in middle school. Listening to those songs kind of connects me to the memories of listening to them back then. And it's not perfect, and I still have writing group members read over it, especially those who have middle school aged kids.
Hmm.
sometimes they'll share passages with their kids, and I get a little taste of some help. But when I can't give my books to middle school age kids and say, "Hey, read this and give me back your feedback," I will do the next best thing and just observe as much as I can.
When you said that about putting your music on, I had like three songs pop into my head all at the same time. Uh,
Right.
how much money do you make?
Um, that is a complicated question for a writer. Not enough to support a family on.
Okay.
Most writers do not make enough to support a family on. Most writers do not become rich. Most writers don't make very much. Um, it depends on the book, it depends on the project, it depends on the publisher. So I am traditionally published, which means that I will send a book to an agent. The agent says, I like this, I like you, let's work together. Um, then the agent goes and finds a publishing house and editors that they know are looking for what I'm selling.
Okay.
And they will essentially broker that deal. So the publishing house will put together a contract and say, this is how much we want to give you for this. They'll present an advance, which is a bet on how much money the book will make. And I don't make any money off royalties until that advance is paid off. So
Okay.
till they earn back how much they said that they're gonna give me. My agent will usually try to negotiate a higher advance and more rights for me, things like that, better royalties, whatever. And until everybody's happy, and then the contract is signed and goes through. And then my agent takes 15% of the money that I make. So whatever my cut is, they get 15%. They are worth every cent. I'm without an agent right now, but my previous agent was fantastic, and she deserved every cent of that. So that's how that works. So it's
Great.
not enough to raise a family on, typically. I have a day job. Well, I'm a stay-at-home mom, but if when I was before I had kids, I had a day job. Everybody in my writing group has day jobs. And
Hey, being a full-time mom is 100% a full-time day job. My wife and I
it
joke about that her job is so much harder than mine, even though she doesn't get paid for it.
is.
Um,
I mean,
but
the
yeah,
question of finances, yeah, it's not really a factor right now. So what I make from writing is helpful, I guess, in the family finances, but it's not this huge contribution. I mostly write because I love to write and because I want people to be able to read my stories.
that's it. That's our conversation. Thank you for joining again. If you're interested in reading any of Allison's books, there's links down below in the description. And if you have any questions for her, be sure to leave a comment. And as always, be sure to share this channel with all of your friends who are career curious.